Okay, what up ladies and gents, it's your favorite Asian robot right here, hopefully your favorite official content creator for the First Descendant, and today we're going to go through Keelan's farming build. This is not the infinite dash version of this build. I will try that live on stream first before I present it to you guys. So this is just my personal farming build, which I like to use with Keelan and which has proven successful as you've seen on live stream. So this is it, okay? I'm going to go through everything you need to build this, but before we get started, as always, hope you don't mind if I do a little bit of advertising. Right now, in case you guys did not know, I'm continuing to release more of my music on SoundCloud, as well as my YouTube music channel, which has a different name. Take note of that. All right, I've been doing all that. And then, in case you guys didn't know, I'm also currently releasing on major music platforms like Spotify, as well as Apple Music. Now, these are on a per album basis. So if you want to hear my tracks early, you head over to SoundCloud or my YouTube music channel. Otherwise, you can get my tracks on Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, all popular music platforms I'm distributing. All right. It's free. Enjoy. Please listen. All right. If you like my stuff. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Let's get into the build. All right. So for Keelan's build, Reactor, I am using a, oops, sorry, I should probably remove my cam there. Let me remove my cam and we'll go through this. For my reactor, I'm using a toxic singular reactor. Okay. Make sure you have skill cooldown on this. It must be a gold roll above 0.07. Okay. Other than that, I would really recommend, now here it says skill duration up, but that's because I couldn't find a better reactor for Keelan. You are actually going to want skill cooldown and toxic skill power boost ratio gold. Okay. That is the best bang for your buck with Keelan. This is because he does not utilize crits in this particular build. All right. For his external components, what I have done is I have stacked external components that give him cooldown. So Hunter Sensor and Hunter Processor are your best bang for your buck. The other two components, you can do whatever. I've just given him as much hit points as possible to survive. But if you find that he can survive just fine, you can do whatever you want here. All right. Keelan also does not use MP. So take note that you can just use, like, for example, just if I wanted to give him an auxiliary power with fire resistance, I could do exactly that if I wanted to. Okay, because he does not use MP, therefore MP recovery out of combat, not very useful for him. But since I didn't farm specific components for him, I'm just using some of the components that I used on other characters, and it works just fine. Now I'm going to go through the rolls for each of these. For the auxiliary power, you want a max HP roll, and then the second roll can be anything. All right. For the Hunter Sensor, you are going to need a max MP. Sorry, you do not need a max MP roll because Keelan does not use MP. So you can either use a reactor very similar to Glaze. Glaze would be chill resistance, HP recovery modifier. You can absolutely do this if you wanted to. Okay. But you would need those rolls on the Hunter Sensor. So take note of that. For the Annihilation memory, for the memory, you can choose like Annihilation or whatever, but I just chose Annihilation because it's got 646 max hit points. You want a defense roll on it, and then the second roll can be anything. So in this particular case, I've got gold drop rate increase modifier because I use Keelan as a farmer, so I may as well have a farming type roll on it. For the processor, I'm using the Hunter processor, which comes with 646 max HP. All right. The rolls on this should be max shield, gold, and equipment drop rate increase, gold. Why? You're going to use him as a farmer, so you want him to get more drops of like reactors, whatever else, right? So that's what I have on him, and that covers the reactor and external components for Keelan. Okay. Can you use other external components? The answer is yes. All right, if you want to use, like, you want to get more power, you can put the Slayer set on him or things like that. Just remember what kind of rolls you need. And ultimately, if you put on a different external component set like Slayer, you are going to decrease his survivability, but increase his power. However, I don't believe he needs a power increase based on how ridiculously strong he already is. All right, again, I'll happily show that in the 400% in the Sigma sector or whatever. I'll see what we have time for later. Okay, for weapons, you are going to want the Python. Why? You can use the Python as a speed stick. You're not really getting this for stats. Take note that I've got two yellow rutile cores, which you can have sprint speed 20%, sprint speed 20%. And if you want Keelan to go at maximum speed, you can even put a third sprint speed in place of where I've got toxic attack. However, I prefer a balance of power and speed. So I've got two sprint speeds, and that's enough for me. Okay. In terms of the modules that I'm using on the Python, I'm using an old build for the Python, but this still works. All right, I've put in the two multi-hit modules, but yeah, this is what I've got. I'm not going to go too in depth with this. If you really want an explanation on the Python, I can do it in a separate video going through it fully, but this is what I've got for Keelan. All right, roles once again here. All right, you can screenshot this and just copy these because this is what I'm using. Again, I just use this mostly as a speed stick, so the roles are not really like, to me, this is what gives me the best bang for my buck. All right. Now, for Keelan's actual modules, right? I'm going to do a little bit of a skill explanation before going into the modules so that you can see why I've made the choices I've made. Again, this is not the infinite dash build, but you can dash quite a lot regardless because of the unique mechanics of this, okay? Let me remove my green screen again and we'll talk about it. First and foremost, you've got Void Corrosion. Void Corrosion will fire up to 10 projectiles, okay, based on how much additional range you have. Now, you are going to need to get about, like, I think 1.8 times multiplier to get the 10 projectiles. But there's a way that you can, if you're willing to sacrifice one projectile, bring this down to 9, you can sort of make a more efficient build. Okay, choice is yours. But anyway, that's for his first skill. For his second skill, take note that the stack cooldown is 55 seconds. The maximum cooldown you can have on any character is 90%. So you actually want as much cooldowns as possible to bring the cooldown from 55 seconds down to 5.5 seconds per stack. And you can reduce the cooldown by 5 seconds per time that you pierce through the enemy. You can pierce through a maximum of 3 enemies to get the maximum reduction of 15 seconds, right? So in some circumstances, when you pierce through enough enemies during the dash phase before the explosion radius, Keelan, funnily enough, will actually gain stacks, all right, with this particular loadout. So you can actually sometimes gain like 2 stacks, which is pretty awesome. But anyway, that's how it works, okay? So this is your main bread and butter damage dealing, as well as being able to move across maps very quickly. Septic Gust. This is so useful. It's on a 3.5 second cooldown with this loadout, and it basically has a maximum radius, all right, of, if I'm not wrong, the maximum radius, the max expandable range of this is 250%, which means that you can go up to about 17.5 meters of range on this. Slightly under Bunny's ring, about 3 meters less than Bunny's ring, but please pay no attention to the tooltip because the tooltip will just go as high as possible but not actually show you the truth. How do you know this? From my skill range video, you should already know how it operates, but a skill range of 250%, okay, means that the maximum range, for example, on Keelan's burst is 5 meters, and 250% of 5 meters would be 12.5. But here it says 14.7, which is incorrect, okay? So take note of that. Okay. Last but not least, you've got Tremor. Sorry for exiting the module screen. Tremor is great because it's on a 6-second cooldown and it can do one of 2 things. If there are no enemies within the 6-meter detection radius, all right, you can just gain 3 stacks of your second skill anytime. Okay, if there is an enemy, the skill will glow and it will consume the acidic decay stacks on that enemy. I believe the maximum number of stacks is 5. Okay. Yes. Okay. Maximum number of stacks is 5. Each stack will deal 4,258.2% skill power modifier. So your explosion deals at maximum basically 20,000 skill power multiplier. It's more than that, obviously, but you know, it's pretty awesome. So that's what Tremor is used for. Okay. Now, for the modules, in order to make, now the one thing you probably have noticed is that Keelan has no MP cost for any of these skills, but very, very long cooldown. So you need to maximize your cooldown. That is what this module loadout is for. So let's go through it together. What you're going to need for survival: increase HP, stim accelerant. If you don't need extra survival, drop increase HP. You can chuck whatever you want in this spot. You've literally got a free slot, okay? Do whatever you want there. Next, focus on toxic amplification, focus on singular. These give you cooldown, damage, all that kind of stuff. Focus on singular will not actually help your damage by much, but it will help your skill cooldowns, which is pretty important. All right. Nimble fingers, MP conversion, all for cooldowns. This should make sense to everybody. Now for range, you want skill expansion and amplification control. This is more than enough to hit the cap on his second and third skill. Okay. Then the last thing is multi-talented. Why? Because Keelan's main damage dealing skills in this loadout is Onslaught as well as Septic Gust. Void Corrosion does help, but it's not your main skill. So multi-talented will always be triggering the singular active skill effect, which gives you all attribute damage plus 30% for 5 seconds. This is pretty good because when you use it with Onslaught, it acts as this all attribute damage acts as a multiplier that is separate from everything else that you're dealing with. So yeah, it's one of my favorite things to stack on when I primarily use singular skills to damage the enemy. Okay, so there you go. That's my loadout for him. Now, you've heard me talk through all this. Let's go to the demonstration. But before that, there's 2 things we need to fix as always. Inversion reinforcement and Arche tuning. For the inversion reinforcement for Keelan, let me explain what you will do with him. Okay. The Python does have multi-hits on a 30% chance, so you might want to roll strike point amplification, which further increases your weak point damage. Then, in this particular case, toxic focus rounds, he's got an option here. You can choose anything for your last spot. It doesn't really matter what you pick. You can take anything in this tree. Some people like to take Adrenaline Rush. I really leave that up to you if you want. If you make primary use of the Malevolent, all right, for boss killing or whatever, which you don't have to, you can use Evolutionary Cutting Mechanism. But otherwise, you've literally got total freedom of choice. Do whatever you want here. There's no right or wrong answer, okay? So for this particular demonstration, we'll go with Adrenaline Rush so that he can go even faster. And this is it, okay, for his Inversion Reinforcer. Now, Arche tuning. Okay, Arche tuning is important for Keelan because this is where he gets all his power, all his skills, all his stuff, all right? Here's what I'm doing with Keelan right now. Let me just quickly remove my green screen once again. Okay, right-hand side of the tree is the most important. Make sure to grab all these skill power nodes because power is good for him, all right? So 1, 2, 3, and everything along the way to these 3 is important. Range and skill cost is generally what's taken. Then you go straight up to get cooldowns. As I've already mentioned, you must hit the cooldown cap. With this particular loadout, my total cooldown is, although this says min, it should say max, minus 0.9 times, which is the maximum amount of cooldown you can have. All right, you need to hit that, so that's what this is for. All right, I haven't fully finished this tree. I've got like 4 more points I can put in. I'm just gonna go for this weak spot damage. Why? This is just helpful to your damage overall. Okay. You don't have to do this, but otherwise you've got 4 free points. You can do whatever you want with them. But for me, I'm just going to go down this left-hand side and just take these, and I'm good to go. Okay? So that's what I have done for Keelan. Now, you've heard me yap about all this. Let me actually go and demonstrate this. So, first and foremost, let's just take, I mean, we can go anywhere, but Hagios the Haven, that's usually a good choice. Okay, let's go. We'll do a 400% demonstration, and if I have time, I will do another demonstration for you at the end. But otherwise, I think most of you have seen it on stream. Actually, yeah, I may not have time, so I'll just quickly clear this 400% for you guys. And then if you guys want to see more demonstrations of Keelan, tune into my stream, and I'll happily showcase this to you anytime. All right, because I'll be working on the Infinite Dash build soon anyway. Okay. Here we go. Notice how I got my cooldowns back instantaneously because I pierced through multiple targets? Yeah. Do that and abuse that. Alright? So that's what you do with Keelan. Head down there. Okay, take all those out. Now keep in mind that he detonates at the end of his dash. So you really want to take advantage of that. Alright. That's it. You can also use this to get to the next area more quickly. Then consume the last skill to further enhance your stacks. All right. You can't run away. But yeah, basically you can just literally run through opponents. Use Septic Gust. if you ever need to, you can fire off your Void Corrosion for a little bit of extra damage. Choice is yours. All right. The only reason I don't use the infinite dash, because as fun as it is, I can find it difficult to aim. Alright, because I don't want to just be dashing randomly. I sometimes like to plan where I want to go with my dashes, so yeah. But of course, with infinite dashes, I mean, you don't really have to think, do you? You just have to keep activating your skill. At least that's what I'm assuming I'll have to do, so that's my plan anyway. Keep in mind that for Keelan, his third and fourth skill do not solely operate off cooldown. You're going to need his passive as well. But if you don't understand Keelan's passive, ask. Alright, it's a fairly simple, straightforward read, but if you're ever confused about it, just ask. For those ones, it's best to ask on stream so I can show you and go through it with you if needed. Most people I've met just want the build rather than the explanation of skills because they can read and figure that out for themselves, but I know that some folks do get confused occasionally, so if you do, well, I'll do my best to help you. Alright, see here, right, I want to increase my stacks, so I can just literally do that. I used my fourth skill to increase the number of stacks I had, therefore traveling faster. That is essentially what Keelan does. Alright, when you get to this boss area, you can just bust on him with the Python. Thanks to firing Fiesta, okay, you've got basically limitless ammo for a little while. Use and abuse this thoroughly. The sheer amount of damage that Keelan can put out is insane. So you can do something like that. And for Keldir, the blind assassin, well, you got this going for you. There we go. Done. And you're clear. Okay? So that was a nice little 3-minute run. I believe Bunny is slightly faster than Keelan by about like 20 seconds, but basically that's it as well. Alright, there you go. That's Keelan's build in a nutshell. And apparently I wasn't even max level there. So there you go. That's how you operate Keelan. That's what you're supposed to do. Okay? Y'all have fun. I've got a spot underneath my chin. Damn. Why do I sometimes get these random spots? Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Alright, I very much appreciate you guys who do that. Now let me also pull up the list of our top supporters. Okay? Gotta go pull out that list so I can thank them all. Because they're awesome! There we go. Come on. Pull it. There we are. Good. Good-o. Alright. Let me just grab that for you. Properties. There we are. Okay. April's top supporter list is here. Top tipper is CG Mayhem. Top tipper list includes Fluffy Bunnykins, Kenny Tiet. Top super chatter is Lawbreaker. Top super chat list includes Jody Wilkins, Chester Lester, Craig Ricketts, Louis Acosta, Mystic Dove, Sir Tommy, D. Russ, Jonathan Terry. Top channel membership gifter is D. Russ with 15 gifted memberships. Top membership gifter list includes Arcane Silver 300, Jody Wilkins, Chris Campbell, D. Russ, and Mystic Dove. Thank you guys so much for all you do for me. I sincerely appreciate it. All right. See you guys on the next stream and enjoy Keelan. Catch you later.